The show where there are no penalties, nothing is offside, and everything is fair game. This is The Gloves Are Off.
Hello and welcome to another edition of The Gloves Are Off. I'm Moses Woldu. Another great show for you this week. A lot of interesting things happened over the past 7 days, the previous 7 days, of course, including the trade deadline. We'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about this guy who makes a return again once on that lovely chair of his. The groove is still intact. Andrew Brethauer, how's it going, buddy? Lord Mr. Source Sports Editor.
It's good.
Yeah?
I need a better chair, though.
Yeah?
Or recliner.
Or recliner? I don't know if it's going to be in our budget.
We can't change the porno studio here, but yeah, I want a recliner.
Well, you know what? The good news is we're still keeping around, unlike Jonathan Drouin, who's going to be spending a lovely time out in the AHL if he decides to return, or at least sit at home. Speaking of a guy who won't be sitting at home, I should say, but decided to sit with us and hang out for a bit. It's been a while since we had you on the show, I think about a year. We're pleased to have you on. Of course, you are the editor for the Vermilion Standard. Chris Roberts, how are you?
Pretty good. It's fourth time on, and looking forward to it.
All right. Hopefully you get a chance to beat this guy in over-under.
I hope.
That's a given.
All right. Well, let's talk about more pressing matters that happened over the past week. Previously yesterday, of course, trade deadline day. Not many moves, about 19 moves in total. A few players' picks were kind of thrown in. If you look at where the Canadian team stood, there wasn't really much noise from that aspect. Of course, all of them out of the playoff picture as we speak. With that said, you look at what happened, even not just yesterday, but the previous day, Chicago making a splash, Dallas picking up a key defenseman to help them out. Were there any noticeable winners or losers in your minds? We'll start with you, Chris.
I think you're going to know who I say for the winner, and it's the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Oh, here we go.
Look, Roman Polak and Nick Spalling for 2 seconds. That's essentially the same price Eric Stahl got. I mean, come on. Lou Lamoriello stocked up on picks. They didn't retain salary on Dion Phaneuf. Got a couple nice prospects. They did exactly what they wanted to do.
They picked up?
Brooks Laich is the biggest loser of the deadline because he goes from Washington, the team he spent 12 years with, to the Leafs, who
are the Leafs at this point.
Are the Leafs.
But you're saying the winners are the Leafs.
They did
in
what
terms
they
of what
accomplished,
they did.
right?
Yeah.
And other than that, I mean, Chicago, like you said, is a big winner. I mean, I think they got to be the Cup favorites again, bringing back Ladd.
And I like what Florida did too. Had a lot of depth character guys that in that division, they need guys like that. They're going to need that kind of guy in the playoffs. But it isn't insane when you can think that the Leafs got the exact same thing for what Eric Stahl fetched for and how they just basically fleeced everybody. Like that. How does that even happen? Like one manager.
Lou Lamoriello, man.
Like what a beauty. Like how do you get the same thing for what an Eric Stahl's worth? Now you like in a sense could trade those 2 picks and get a superstar. That's ridiculous.
And that, you know what, that might come down in the future in the summer because you know who's available and is from the area, and he's playing in Tampa right now. So I think you could add 2 and 2.
Yeah, not too obvious.
Yeah, S. Stamkos. I think that should be the guy. All right. Well, with that said, you guys provided me the winners. Who are the losers then?
I think, like I said, Brooks Laich. But
You're
no,
saying an individual, but as
for
a team.
teams, I guess St. Louis. They didn't do a whole lot. They lost Brian Elliott for a bit, and they even missed out. I'm not sure they picked up a goalie or not.
They got Franz Nielsen. They got Nielsen from
Nielsen, right? From
Edmonton.
From Edmonton, yes. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I don't think they really improved a lot. They've had a lot of injuries, and they weren't really able to do much. So I think that's going to really help them. And they're in that tough division, right? I mean, they're not getting past Chicago or Nashville for that matter.
Nashville's a team that's starting to come up. Do you see a loser?
Well, I don't see a loser because it was so hard to trade. Yeah. No one had cap, or the cap was going down next year, so no one's trading. Picks were, you had guys, 2 picks going for one guy, and there was really no losers. Now let's talk about Edmonton, who are always losers. I don't think they did enough. And I said last week that they should trade a lot of guys. They should have made some moves in the deadline and started piecing something together. Sticking with the status quo again for the rest of the season, now you're going into a draft and it's kind of like, oh, we'll see what happens and we'll see where this draft pick kind of lands.
Well, can you blame him? Maybe he wasn't thinking that they got the right price for a guy like Yakupov.
It's not like there's no urgency in Edmonton. I mean, they've been terrible for a decade, so what's the rush?
Well, you have a new group, and it's Peter Chiarelli that's taken over, so maybe he's just not seeing. Maybe there's a big package in there. Perhaps they could ship X amount of players and picks for a guy that they're looking for, like a Travis Hamonic, who I know they've been really wanting on that team, and maybe this offseason might provide that. If they get another high pick, that might be another thing.
And acquiring defensemen from the Islanders has worked out real well for the Oilers. Griffin Reinhart was a steal.
All right, guys.
And also,
let's-
I'd say Vancouver.
that was
Vancouver didn't do
sarcasm,
enough. Vancouver did nothing at all to improve their team.
All right. Well, how about this? No sarcasm needed for the AAA, or sorry, no adversity for the Lakeland Rustlers. I want to get to this. I was jumping a little bit ahead on the hockey train. I want to talk about the Lakeland Rustlers women's basketball team. Perfect throughout the season, which is awesome and all fine and good. You're 24-0. You're the 9th team to do so, and the teams that have done it previously, 7 went to the finals. 5 of them ended up winning. All great and good, but you're the hosts. A little bit pressure here. Do you think this is a team that really hasn't faced much adversity, can deal with the pressures of the home crowd, deal with those Southern teams they haven't seen? Andrew, you've studied this team, you followed this team throughout the year. What's your take on it?
I think playing out, they're not worried about playing at home. They want to play at home. Like, no one wants to travel anymore. And they've been that good. If you look over the last 2 years, they're 42-2 in the last 2 years. Like, it's a ridiculous record. But as you said, like, can they play against a South team that's actually good? The North has been historically in the last 2 years terrible. Like, it's not even a good division at all. And the show last year, they played terrible against South teams. So it's really going to come down to their defense. If they can play defense and they can limit teams, because they have the firepower, they can put up 70, 80 points in a game. If they can limit the defense, they'll win. If they don't, it's going to be like last year. They'll be done in first round, second round.
They've made the strides throughout the last few years, but you got to think, is it going to be even more devastating if this team doesn't accomplish what they want?
I would think so. I mean, I recall covering the team a couple of years ago when they obviously weren't quite this good. They had a good roster, but like you said, they made tremendous strides. But I go back, I think they might have maybe faced some adversity this season. I mean, the talk of, I guess, an undefeated season. I mean, I know I've seen you talk about it on Twitter all season long. I mean, people talk about it. So at that halfway point of the season, I mean, you know that's on their mind, and that can be a pretty big mental block at times. So you know that's got to be on their mind, and with every game they continue to win. So I don't see it being a big issue.
All right, guys, how about this? The AAA Bobcats, now we're getting to them. This is a team that's built to win and contend for a TELUS Cup. If you look out the depth on this roster and the future WHL players that are amongst this group, they have solidified themselves as the best team, setting a record in the Alberta Midget AAA for points, that is in a regular season. And this is a team that has come off a loss and bounced back nicely in a Game 3 win and now lead the best-of-5 series 2-1. They're taking on Leduc, a team that, you know, they're no slouches, but this is a team that the Bobcats can beat. Will they do that and complete the series in Game 4 tomorrow night?
I would have to assume so. I mean, I followed that Game 1 mostly online, and I saw some of the updates, and I think it was 1-0. They were down the whole way and scored, you know, a quick goal at the end of the game, and then again in overtime. That's got to be pretty defeating for a team like the Duke, who, you know, up against a powerhouse like the Bobcats, who I think I read correctly gave up less than 2 goals a game this season, and I mean defense tightens in the playoffs. So you lose a game like that. I mean, it's tough to come back from.
It was the perfect road game for Leduc, and like, yeah, you lose it with 21 seconds left.
Yeah.
That's when then overtime. That's how they had to play. And then when they won Game 2, but if you look at all that, like, they're getting outshot left, right, and center, and Leduc's got to be sitting there being like, how do we sustain this? Because you let 50 shots in the first game, you won the second game but gave up 30, and then you lost the third game 7 goals on 30 shots again. That's the problem with this team. It's all 4 lines can score. How do you stop that? And in Game 1, it's because they're hot goalie. That's what happened. And then now it's like, if I'm Leduc, I'm scared because no shot at them, but you're playing a team that is so built on firepower and has the ability, can say, if you want to play physical, we'll play physical. If you want to play scoring, we'll play that too. There's so many
match up to whatever skill set
There's
the other
just so much
other team
dimensions. And if you look at like 2 years ago, that's that same Heat team that won everything. It's the same way. They can play any way you want, but they'll beat you. You have to score 6-7 goals to win, or shut them down to 1-2.
All right, so you think that, I imagine from what you guys said, this series is done on Wednesday then?
I would think
I hope so, because I got a lot of other stuff to go to on Friday.
It's going to be a busy sports week here in Lloydminster and area, that's for sure. All right, guys, we're going to take a commercial break. When we return, we're going to have more Gloves Are Off and talk about Tom Brady and his nice little deal that has him through with the Patriots till 2019. Stay tuned.